people came after me and my family. Not my people.
Lioness Season 3, Episode 5, arrives on August 30th with the most urgent question the season has yet produced. Joe McNamara is on a plane headed toward hostile territory. The CIA team got close enough to touch her and came away with nothing, and the episode title, The Idiot Army, is the show's most pointed piece of self-diagnosis since the season began. The question is, who the idiots are. Is it the CIA team that lost Joe despite closing the gap to arm's reach? Is it the Russian operation that believes it can extract meaningful intelligence from a woman who has survived everything the world has thrown at her for 3 seasons? Is it the assumption that Joe is simply a captured asset to be processed, rather than the most dangerous person in any room she is placed in? Or is the show turning the phrase on the domestic political infrastructure that Kaitlyn Meade warned about? The infected bear, the compromised officials, the idiot army of recruited Americans who are about to be exposed in ways that collapse the entire network at once. Did Byron Westfield actually issue an order to kill Joe rather than allow her to be extracted to Russia? And if he did, does that order still stand in Episode 5? What did Joe say to the Russian agent who was interrogating her in the Baltimore hangar? And does her decision to argue ideology rather than resist tactically tell the audience something about the play she is running from inside captivity? How does the CIA respond when the plane carrying its most classified operative crosses out of American airspace? And does Episode 5 deliver the thing the season has been building toward? Kaitlyn Meade operating without institutional constraint for the first time in the series. And is The Idiot Army the episode where the domestic handler network that Alexandra mapped gets rolled up while Joe is simultaneously being transported into Russian custody, creating the most tactically absurd situation the Lioness program has ever been placed in, winning the network fight while losing the war? Every one of those questions has an answer, and this breakdown covers all of them. The single most important development in Murder Hornets is not the failed rescue at the Baltimore hangar. It is the question raised by DM Talkies in their Episode 4 breakdown. Did Byron Westfield issue an order to kill Joe? The specific framing of that question in a headline published within hours of the episode airing tells the audience that something in Murder Hornets puts that possibility on the table in a way that the show has never done before. Byron Westfield has been one of Joe's most reliable institutional allies across 3 seasons, the CIA deputy director who operates in the space between what Kaitlyn can officially authorize and what the situation actually requires. The evidence from Season 3's specific escalation, Joe is now on a plane toward Russian territory, carrying in her memory every Lioness operation the CIA has run for the last decade, with no reasonable timeline for extraction through conventional channels, tells the audience why the kill order question becomes thinkable in Episode 4, and why it becomes the central institutional crisis of Episode 5. A woman who knows every operative, every asset, every source, every method, and every ongoing operation the Lioness program has conducted over the past decade is not simply a captured CIA officer. She is the single most catastrophic intelligence liability the United States government has ever placed in hostile hands. The mathematics of what Russia can extract from her, not through torture which Joe would endure, but through the long, patient process of chemical interrogation and psychological pressure that Russian intelligence has refined over decades, is not a comfortable calculation for anyone in the CIA who has ever read a counterintelligence assessment. However, unfortunately, a kill order on Joe McNamara is not simply a tactical decision about preventing intelligence compromise. It is a decision that would end the Lioness program permanently, that would confirm to every other CIA operative what the institution values more than its people, and that would put Byron in a position that neither Kaitlyn nor Secretary Mullins could politically survive endorsing. The evidence from the show's structure, specifically from its 3rd season's consistent refusal to make the institutional pressures on the CIA clean or comfortable, tells the audience that The Idiot Army is the episode where that question stops being theoretical and becomes something that requires an actual answer from the people who would have to implement it. The evidence strongly suggests that the kill order, whether issued or merely contemplated, is the central moral crisis of Episode 5, the moment where the institution's logic and Joe's humanity are placed in direct and irreconcilable conflict, and where Kaitlyn Meade has to decide which one she serves. The most likely explanation for the Episode 5 title is the one that the season's own language has been building toward since Errol Meade's dinner table observation that Russia's objective is to have America at war with itself. The Idiot Army, in the context of a domestic counterintelligence operation, is not a reference to the Russian operatives or to Joe's kidnappers. It is a reference to the recruited American citizens who believed they were serving a sophisticated intelligence operation and are about to discover that the sophistication ended the moment the operation got loud enough to attract CIA attention. The evidence from Alexandra's mapping of the domestic network, the handlers, the assets, the civilian contacts who were turned or recruited or compromised over years of patient Russian intelligence work, tells the audience that the network has a specific structural weakness that its American members have almost certainly never considered. They joined because they thought they were operating invisibly inside a superpower's infrastructure. The evidence strongly suggests that The Idiot Army is the episode where the CIA's exposure of that network reveals just how visible every one of them actually was, and that the revelation of their own conspicuousness is the moment the show earns the title's specific contempt. However, unfortunately, the idiots in question may not be limited to the domestic network. The episode title may also be self-directed, the show's way of acknowledging that the CIA, in constructing and executing the trap that activated the network, also provided the conditions under which Joe McNamara was captured. The cleverest trap the Lioness program ever built caught its own architect. The Idiot Army built the cage and then walked into it. What makes this reading of the title so compelling is that it mirrors the season's central question about the cost of intelligence work, whether the tactical brilliance of any individual operation is worth the systemic damage it creates to the people and the institutions trying to run it. Joe's plan to expose the network by announcing Yurimov's capture was brilliant. It was also the direct cause of her own abduction. The evidence from how Sheridan has always structured the moral calculus of his most complex characters, always making sure the most capable person in the room is also the person who designed their own worst-case scenario, tells the audience that The Idiot Army is the episode that forces the CIA to sit with the specific irony of what it has accomplished. The theory that changes what Episode 5 actually delivers about Joe's captivity comes directly from what Murder Hornets showed in its present-day opening sequence. Joe, tied up in the Baltimore hangar, was not passive. She was trading barbs with the Russian agent interrogating her, arguing ideology, confronting the geopolitical framework of what both of them were doing in that room, engaging with the language of the conflict rather than attempting to escape it. The evidence from that choice of engagement tells the audience something specific about the play Joe is running from inside captivity. She is not trying to survive the interrogation by resisting it. She is trying to change the frame of it. A woman who knows she cannot physically escape a secure facility occupied by trained operatives does not fight the facility. She fights the mind of the person running it. The evidence from Joe's 3 seasons of operational history tells the audience that she has never been in a situation she could not shape if she was conscious and talking, and that The Idiot Army is the episode where the audience discovers whether the shaping she began in the Baltimore hangar has produced anything useful by the time the plane is in the air. The most logical conclusion from the ideological argument she started in Episode 4 is that she was building a relationship, the specific, adversarial, respect-generating kind of relationship that intelligence operatives develop with the best enemies they have ever faced, and that can be used later as the basis for something neither of them would describe as negotiation. However, unfortunately, the specific danger of that strategy in the context of Episode 5 is that Joe is now on a plane, and the person she was building a relationship with in the Baltimore hangar may not be the same person managing her once she arrives at the destination. Russian intelligence structures its operations in exactly the way CIA counterintelligence training warns about. The tactical team that conducts the extraction hands the asset to the analytical team that conducts the interrogation, and the relationship the asset built with the extraction team provides exactly zero leverage with the analytical team, which has never met her and cares about nothing except what she knows. The evidence strongly suggests that The Idiot Army is the episode where Joe discovers whether her Baltimore hangar play was preparation for the long game that follows, or whether she built a connection to a professional who is now on the other side of a closed door and irrelevant to her actual situation. But the theory that cuts deepest into what Episode 5 delivers for the people watching at home is the one about Neal McNamara, and the evidence from Episode 4's domestic thread, described by Nerd Alert as depicting a family forced to prepare for the unthinkable, makes this the season's most painful ongoing thread. Episode 4's synopsis confirmed that Neal struggles with growing fears, even as the team races to find Joe. In Episode 5, with Joe now on a plane toward Russia and the CIA unable to confirm her status or her destination with certainty, Neal's fears are no longer fears. They are facts. The woman he loves is gone. Not missing, not in danger at a known location, but on a plane headed somewhere that the CIA is not officially authorized to pursue her. The specific cruelty of Neal's position in the Idiot Army is that there is nothing medically, professionally, or personally that he can do. He is a pediatric oncology surgeon. He deals with irreversible situations every day of his professional life and has built a career on the specific wisdom of knowing when to act and when to accept. However, unfortunately, everything he has ever learned about accepting the irreversible applies to other people's children. It has never applied to Joe. The specific cruelty of Neal's position in the Idiot Army is that the instincts that make him exceptional at his job, the ability to assess a situation accurately, to distinguish between what can be changed and what cannot, to resist the impulse to do something destructive just because doing nothing feels unbearable, are the same instincts that have been preparing him, unconsciously, for exactly this moment. A man who spends his career in a pediatric oncology ward learns to hold the unbearable without collapsing under it. He also learns, eventually, that holding is not the same as accepting. And the evidence from 3 seasons of Dave Annable building Neal as the show's moral center, the person who tells the truth about what the Lioness program costs the people adjacent to it, tells the audience that Episode 5 is the episode where Neal's growing fears produce something more than fear. They produce a decision. The evidence strongly suggests that what Neal decides to do in the Idiot Army is not passive. It is the thing the show has been building his character toward since the first episode of the season. While the Joe captivity arc and the Byron kill order question dominate the Idiot Army, there is another dimension of the episode that the confirmed CIA institutional response to Joe's capture creates, and it belongs to Kaitlyn Meade. Nicole Kidman's performance across Season 3 has been the institutional face of every crisis, the person who manages upward toward Secretary Mullins and manages downward toward Joe and Byron, while attempting to prevent the entire apparatus from collapsing under the weight of what the Russian network has exposed about American intelligence vulnerabilities. Episode 4's frantic hunt synopsis left Kaitlyn in a position where the thing she was racing to prevent, Joe leaving American territory in Russian custody, has now happened anyway. The Idiot Army is the episode after the failed prevention. Kaitlyn Meade in the episode after the thing she could not stop is a version of this character the show has never had to depict before, and the evidence from how the season has built toward this specific emotional and institutional position tells the audience that Episode 5 is going to show Kaitlyn operating outside the framework that has defined her role in every previous episode. The frantic hunt produced nothing. The institutional tools did not work. The question the Idiot Army has to answer for Kaitlyn Meade is what she does when the institutional playbook has been exhausted, and the only remaining options are the ones that the institution cannot officially endorse. The evidence from how Nicole Kidman has built Kaitlyn across 3 seasons, as a woman who has always found the line between what is sanctioned and what is necessary and learned to operate in the space between them, tells the audience that Episode 5 is the season's Kaitlyn Meade at her most dangerous. Not because she will do something violent or reckless, but because she will do something quiet and final and irreversible that no one in the building will have authorized. The evidence strongly suggests that the Idiot Army is the episode where Kaitlyn Meade stops managing the crisis and starts resolving it on her own terms, and that the resolution she reaches is the kind that cannot be undone, regardless of what the institution decides about it afterward. After everything Murder Hornets delivered and everything the episode 5 title and confirmed production details reveal about where the season is heading, the one question every fan is holding is the most structurally significant one. With 4 episodes remaining and Joe on a plane toward Russia, does the Idiot Army begin the back half of the season as a show about rescue, or does it begin it as a show about what the CIA does when rescue is not possible through any legitimate channel? Site index equals 621-1, Lioness Season 3, Episode 5, The Idiot Army, premieres August 30th, 2026, on Paramount Plus at 3 a.m. Eastern Time. 6/22/11. The full Season 3 schedule runs through September 20th, with Episode 6 on September 6, Episode 7 on September 13th, and the finale on September 20th. Citate index equals 28-1. Taylor Sheridan wrote every episode of this season personally, which means The Idiot Army is a title he chose and a story he wrote with complete awareness of what the season's flash forward has already confirmed. Joe survives long enough to be on that plane. The question is whether the show gets her back before the finale, or whether the season ends in a position that requires a season 4 to resolve. Based on everything the episode title implies, and everything the back half structure demands of a show that has been this precise about its timeline, The Idiot Army is the episode where the answer to that question starts becoming visible. However, unfortunately, visible in this show has never meant comfortable. Sheridan's answers to the most urgent questions in his series have consistently been the ones that create 3 new questions for every one they resolve. Now the conversation moves to the fans. 3 questions need answering before August 30th. Byron Westfield's potential kill order. Did Episode 4 confirm that he issued one, or merely that the question was raised internally? And if it was confirmed, does the Idiot Army show Kaitlyn overriding it, endorsing it, or discovering it has already been transmitted to assets the CIA cannot recall? Joe's ideological argument with her Russian captor in the Baltimore hangar. Was she making contact, building a relationship, buying time, or trying to identify who in the Russian intelligence structure is actually running this operation? And does the Idiot Army show whether any of those plays produced anything before the plane took off? And the question that Neal's domestic arc makes most urgent, when Neal decides in The Idiot Army that growing fear is no longer sufficient, what does the decision look like? And is the audience about to discover that the most dangerous person in this situation is not a CIA operative or a Russian agent, but a pediatric surgeon from Fairfax who has finally had enough? The video on screen covers everything else fans need to know before Episode 5 drops this Sunday.